Okay, so today's class, Monday, what day should we? The 23rd of March. Um, Alright, so in your books, they kind of talk about this as being a different section, multiplying terms with brackets 2. I consider this the same section as the last one, so I'm still calling it expanding brackets 2. Okay, I think if you use the same theory that we used in Friday's work, then it works just fine. I don't think it's a new topic. Okay, so let's have a look at it. I'll just show you what I mean. Minus 4x. I'm just rewriting the first question there. Okay, so you can see it's got this same concept that I was talking about with here's the number, or in this case number and variable outside the bracket. We're going to distribute that across the bracket, and once I get to the end of the bracket, that's that multiplication done, and I move on to the second multiplication, which is the minus 4 distributed across the x and distributed across the 3. Alright, so going back to the start, we have an invisible 1 here, so let's put that in. 2 times 1 is 2, and then letters, I have an x here and an x here, so I have 2 of them, so I write that as x squared. The next one then, so this 2 had no sign in front of it, which means it's positive. So when I multiply this by this here, we're talking about plus by a minus, which are different signs, so the answer is a minus. 2 by 3 is 6. This has an x and this has no letter, which means we just have an x. That's the yellow multiplication done, so we'll move over here to the pink. Now again, I have an x there with no number, so I'm going to put in a number, and I'm also going to acknowledge the fact that this is positive. There is no sign on it, so it's positive. So my first multiplication is multiplying the minus by the plus. Different signs give me minus. Numbers is 4 by 1 is 4. And then I have an x here and an x here, which means I have 2 x's, and we write that as x squared. The last multiplication then is the minus 4x with the 3. So it's a minus and a plus, so signs are different, which makes it a minus. 4 by 3 is 12. This has an x and this has nothing. It's a constant. So that means overall it's just x. We have to, it says it here, simplify. So we go and we match up. So remembering that x squareds and x's are different families. So here's an x squared and here's an x squared, and then here is just a plain old x and here is an x. Okay, so I do have simplifying to do. So my x squared family is 2 take away 4, which is minus 2, and that's the x squared family's total. And then minus 6 and minus 12, that's minus 18 for the x family. Okay, that's the first one. I'll do the second one as well, but can you see, like, that isn't, the concept of that is exactly the same as what we were doing for your last set of homework. Yes, we have letters outside and inside the bracket, but we've already done that when we did expanding brackets 1. Okay, so I see this as the same as the work that you did on Friday, granted a kind of a step up in difficulty. Okay, so we'll do this one down here now. So we have 2x, we have x squared plus x minus 1 minus 2 bracket x minus 1. So let's identify our multiplications. This 2x will be distributed across the bracket that it's in front of, so it's going to have to go once, twice, 3 multiplications there to distribute that. Then we stop with the bracket and we start a new one, so minus 2 will have to be distributed once, twice. Okay, so let's go back to the start. We have an invisible 1 here, so 2 times 1 is 2. 1x here and 2x's here makes a total of 3x's, which we write as x cubed. This is plus, and our next multiplication is with this. So signs are the same, 2 pluses, meaning our answer is a plus. I have an invisible maths there, I have an invisible 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, and there's an x here and an x here, which is 2 x's, which we write as x squared. Next multiplication then is the 2x and the minus 1. So plus and minus are different signs, so negative answer. 2 times 1 is 2. We have an x here and no letter here, which means we just have x. Okay. Okay, that's the yellow multiplication complete and done. Forget about that and move over to the pink one. Okay, so a bit of invisible maths here. We have a 1 and we also have to acknowledge that it's positive. So we have a minus and a plus, different signs give me a minus. Numbers, 2 times 1 is 2. The 2 has no x, but the 1 does, so overall we just have an x. The next multiplication then will be this, the minus 2 with the minus 1. So 2 minuses, signs are the same, so the answer will be plus. 2 times 1 is 2. We've no letter with the 2, we've no letter with the 1, which means we've no letter with the answer. Okay, so let's go and do families. So I have an x cubed family or an x to the power of 3 family, and I don't have another one. So that is all by its ownio. I have an x squared here, and I also don't have another one, so that's going to be on its own. I have an x, and I do have another one from that family. And then we go yellow. I have a constant, so no x squared, no x cubed, just a plain old constant. Okay, so can't do anything with the x cubed because it was on its own, so just rewrite it. Can't do anything with the x squared because it was on its own, so just rewrite it. Now, the x's. We have minus 2, minus 2. That's minus 4 is the total for the x family. And then this was on its own as well, so plus 2. Okay, so that is kind of an extension of what we did on Friday, where I think you can use the exact same processes and the exact same maths to do it. Now, this is moving into, what I'm calling up here, expanding brackets 3. I'm not going to finish this today because there's kind of a bit to it, but I'm going to get you just to do kind of the main idea of it, I suppose. Let's try and make that bigger. Okay, so I'm calling this part expanding brackets 3, just trying to keep you in line with the book. So we'll have a look at these too. Okay, so expanding brackets 3, you can see here, it's where you multiply a bracket by a bracket. So when we did expanding brackets 1, we multiplied a bracket by a bracket, but it was like this. There was only one thing in the first bracket and one thing in the second bracket. Then for expanding brackets 2, we had something outside and then we had 2 things inside, or maybe 3 things inside. Okay, so this was expanding brackets 1 and this was expanding brackets 2. Now the third type is where we're back to having 2 brackets, but inside those 2 brackets there's not one thing, there's actually 2 things. So if you look here, we have an x and we have a 1 in the first bracket, that's 2 things, and we have an x and we have a 7 in the second bracket, that's 2 things. Okay, so you need to distribute the same way we did in expanding brackets 2. So we need to distribute that x across the bracket, and we need to distribute the 1 across the bracket. So there's kind of a little rule to do this. So split the first, multiply by the second is the rule. Okay, so now you'll get the hang of this. So we take the first bracket and we're going to split it up. Okay, so I'm going to take the first part of the bracket and put it here, and the second part of the bracket and put it here. Okay, and in between, I'm going to put this bracket. So it's going to go here, and it's going to go here. Okay, so hopefully the colour helps there. So we take the first bracket and we split it up, put the x here and the 1 here, and then we put the second bracket after the x, and then we put it in again, exactly the same, after the plus 1. Okay, and that's how you ensure that all the bits of the first bracket are multiplied by all the bits of the second bracket, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to multiply the x by these 2 things, distribute the x across the bracket, so multiply the x by the x and the x by the 7. And then we're trying to do the same with the plus 1, multiply that by the x and that by the 7. And this method of split the first, multiply by the second will make sure that you don't miss any of the multiplications. Okay? And then this is just an expanding brackets 2. We're back to where we were a minute ago. So we're going to take this x and multiply it across the first bracket, and you're going to take this 1 and you're going to multiply it across the second bracket. So what I'm going to do now is exactly the same. Invisible 1, invisible 1. 1 times 1 is 1. X and x, 2 of them, we write as x squared. The next multiplication, this is a plus and this is a plus. Signs are the same. So plus 1 and 7. Sorry, 1 times 7 is 7. This has an x, this has nothing, so we just write it as x. That's that bracket done, so we move over here to the pink multiplication. Again, I have an invisible 1 here, and I'm also going to acknowledge that this is a plus. So a plus by a plus, same signs mean plus for my answer. 1 times 1 is 1, and then the x is x. The last multiplication then is the 1 and the 7. So plus and plus, same signs mean plus, and 1 times 7 is 7. The 1 has no letter and the 7 has no letter. And then we do the simplified part. So I have an x squared family and nothing to go with it. I have an x and I have another x, and then I have a 7. So the x squared is on its own, so we leave it as it is. These we are able to combine because they're from the same family, so 7 and 1 is 8 as the total for the x family, and then the 7 is on its own. Okay, and there's your answer. So we'll try the second one just so that we can practice. So 2x plus 3, x minus 2. So 2x plus 3 and x minus 2. Okay, so we're going to follow the rule where we split the first. I'm going to take this and I'm going to write it down here. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to write it down here. So I split up that first bracket. I put the 2x here and I put the plus 3 here. And then I'm going to take that second bracket and I'm going to write it twice. Once after the 2x and another time after the x minus 2. Okay, now I am going to take this and I'm going to multiply it across the first bracket. So there's a 1 there. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 x's makes x squared. Then I'm going to do this with this. So this is a plus because it has no sign. Plus, minus, different signs generate a minus. 2 times 2 is 4. And this has an x, this has nothing, which means overall we just have x. Then we go to the second bracket, which starts with a plus 3. And I'm going to multiply that across the bracket. So this is, where's my invisible 1? And it's also a plus. So when the signs are the same, plus 3 times 1, 3. This has no x, this has an x, so it's just the 1x. Then this and this. So a plus and a minus, different signs make a minus. 3 times 2 is 6, and there's no letters anywhere for that one. So families, we have x squared family. We have x, and there's 2 of them. And then we have the constant families, nothing else in there. So this is 2x squared. This, now, minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1 for the x family, and then minus 6. Okay, so that's it. So expanding brackets 2, just to finish that off, just to show you that even though it's kind of down as a different topic in your book, it's not different, it's the same concept. Distributing that thing outside across the bracket. Whatever's outside, it doesn't matter if it has a letter, it doesn't, the concept's the same. And then moving on to the last section of multiplying out brackets or expanding brackets. And this is when you have 2 brackets and both brackets have 2 things or more in them. And the way you do it is you split the first bracket and multiply it by the second. Okay, so I'm being very methodical about the way I'm going through this. I'm sticking with that concept of do the signs, do the numbers, do the letters, and you need to do the same. Okay, put in your invisible ones, look at the signs every time. What sign are you multiplying by what sign? Make sure you're being careful about it. Okay, so homework assignment will follow. There'll be a little bit on the first part here, which is the end of expanding brackets 2, and then a little bit on expanding brackets 3, and we'll be taking that a bit further then on Wednesday. All right, have a good day.